When we think about influence, we often imagine a kind of natural charisma or charm that draws others toward us. But influence is rarely about what is visible on the surface. It's a deeper game, one that requires insight into human nature, the ability to read situations, and the skill to navigate complex social dynamics. Machiavellian intelligence is not about manipulation for its own sake, it's about understanding the world as it is and leveraging that understanding to achieve outcomes that matter. Today we will explore how this form of intelligence can transform the way we operate in our relationships, careers, and society. To begin, let's confront an uncomfortable truth. People are not always rational, and they are rarely predictable. We like to believe that decisions are based on logic and fairness, but human behavior is driven by a complex web of desires, insecurities, and emotions. If we fail to grasp this, we will forever be at the mercy of those who do. So, the first question we face is this: are we ready to accept that influence is not about fairness, but about strategy?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Machiavellian intelligence is rooted in the ability to understand this complexity without judgment. It requires us to see people not for who they claim to be, but for who they truly are. This starts with observation. How often do we enter a room and fail to notice the subtle cues, the tone of someone's voice, the way they position their body, the fleeting expressions that betray their true feelings? The world is full of signals, yet most of us are blind to them. Why? Because we are distracted by our assumptions, our biases, and our desire to see things as we wish them to be, rather than as they are. If we want to wield influence, we must train ourselves to see clearly. This means setting aside our own ego and paying attention to what others reveal about themselves, often without realizing it. For example, consider how people react under pressure. Most will try to hide their discomfort, but if you look closely, you'll notice the cracks, the slight hesitation in their words, the shift in their gaze. These moments are not weaknesses to exploit, but opportunities to understand. They tell us where someone is vulnerable, what they fear, and what they value most. And when you know what someone values, you know what drives them. Now, let's address an important point. Influence is not about manipulation in the shallow sense of the word. It's about alignment. If you can align your goals with the desires of others, you don't need to force them to act. They will act because it serves their interests as much as yours. But alignment requires empathy, and empathy requires effort. It's not enough to guess what someone wants. You have to listen, observe, and analyze. What do they complain about most often? What do they praise? What do they avoid? Every detail matters, because every detail reveals a part of their inner world. At this point, you might be wondering, isn't this approach cold? Doesn't it reduce people to objects of analysis? The answer depends on your intention. Machiavellian intelligence can be used selfishly, but it can also be used wisely. When we understand what drives others, we can help them achieve their goals while achieving our own. This is not manipulation, it's cooperation at the highest level. But cooperation doesn't mean ignoring power dynamics. It means understanding them and working within them. Let's take a moment to think about power. What is it really? Is it control over others? Is it the ability to get what you want? Or is it something deeper? True power is the ability to shape the environment around you, to create conditions where your influence becomes inevitable. This is why Machiavellian intelligence is so effective. It focuses not on the immediate, but on the long game. It's not about winning arguments or getting your way in every situation. It's about positioning yourself so that, over time, people naturally gravitate toward your ideas and leadership. How do we position ourselves in this way? It starts with credibility. People will not follow you if they do not trust you, and trust is built through consistency. But if you say one thing and do another, your influence will erode. If you make promises you cannot keep, people will stop listening. Credibility is not just about honesty, it's about reliability. But can others depend on you to act in a way that aligns with their expectations? If the answer is yes, you have taken the first step toward influence. But credibility alone is not enough. Influence also requires adaptability. The world is constantly changing, and so are the people within it. If we cling to rigid strategies or fixed beliefs, we will be left behind. Think about the most influential people you know. Are they stubborn, or are they flexible? Do they resist change, or do they embrace it? Adaptability is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence. It shows that you understand the nature of the game and are willing to adjust your approach as needed. Now, let's consider the role of communication. How often do we speak without thinking about the impact of our words? How often do we assume that others understand our intentions, only to realize later that they misinterpreted us? Communication is not just about what we say, it's about how we say it, when we say it, and to whom we say it. The most influential people are masters of timing. They know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to push and when to pull back. They understand that words are tools, and like any tool, they must be used with precision. One of the most powerful tools in communication is framing. How we frame an idea can completely change how it is received. For example, if you want someone to take a risk, you could focus on the potential rewards, or you could frame it as avoiding a loss. Both approaches might lead to the same outcome, but the framing will determine how the other person feels about their decision. This is not about deception, it's about presenting information in a way that resonates with the other person's priorities. As we reflect on all of this, let's ask a difficult question. What is the ultimate purpose of influence? Is it to serve ourselves, or is it to create something larger than ourselves? The answer to this question will shape how we use the principles of Machiavellian intelligence. But if our goal is purely self-serving, we may achieve short-term success, but we will likely leave a trail of damaged relationships and missed opportunities. If our goal is to create value for others as well as ourselves, we can build something that lasts. So where do we go from here? The first step is self-awareness. We cannot influence others effectively if we do not understand our own motivations, biases, and blind spots. What drives us? What do we fear? What do we avoid? If we cannot answer these questions about ourselves, how can we hope to answer them about others? The second step is observation. Pay attention to the people around you, not just their words, but their actions, their expressions, and their choices. What do these reveal about their inner world? The third step is strategy. Influence is not random, it is deliberate. Think about your goals and how they align with the goals of others. How can you position yourself in a way that makes cooperation inevitable? Finally, the fourth step is practice. Machiavellian intelligence is not a skill you learn overnight. It requires effort, patience, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. But the rewards are worth it, not just in terms of influence, but in terms of understanding the world and the people within it on a deeper level than most ever will. When we think about shaping the minds of others, the idea often evokes negative connotations, images of manipulation or coercion. But shaping minds is not about forcing people to think a certain way. It's about guiding them to conclusions in a manner so seamless that they believe those conclusions were entirely their own. True influence is invisible. The more overtly you try to control others, the more they will resist. To shape minds effectively, we must understand the deep mechanics of persuasion and how resistance itself can be transformed into cooperation. To begin, let's address the central cause of resistance. People do not like being told what to do. The moment they sense that someone is imposing their will upon them, their defenses rise. Even if your intentions are good, even if your logic is sound, the simple act of commanding or instructing will often trigger opposition. Why? Because people are fiercely protective of their autonomy. They want to believe they are in control of their own decisions, even when they are not. So, the question becomes, how can we influence others without threatening their sense of autonomy? The answer lies in subtlety. Instead of telling people what to do, we must lead them to see the value in the path we are proposing. This requires a shift in mindset, from control to collaboration, from imposing ideas to planting seeds. Consider this: when someone feels they have discovered an idea on their own, they are far more likely to embrace it and act on it. So, our goal is not to push ideas onto others, but to create conditions where they arrive at those ideas naturally. One powerful way to achieve this is through questioning. The right question can do more to shape someone's thinking than the most compelling argument. Instead of saying, "You should do this," ask, "What do you think would happen if we tried this?" A question invites reflection. It shifts the focus from you to them, making them an active participant in the decision-making process. And when they provide an answer, they are more likely to feel ownership over the outcome. But not all questions are created equal. But to influence effectively, our questions must be strategic. They should guide the other person toward the conclusion we want, without making it obvious that we are doing so. For example, if you want someone to support a risky decision, you might ask, "What do you think are the biggest opportunities we're missing right now?" This question directs their attention to the potential rewards of taking risks without you having to state it outright. Let's take this a step further. Influence is not just about what you say, it's about what you don't say. Silence can be one of the most powerful tools in shaping minds. When you leave space in a conversation, it forces the other person to fill that space. And in doing so, they often reveal their true thoughts, fears, and desires. This gives you valuable information to work with and allows you to guide the conversation more effectively. But silence also does something else. It creates tension. And tension, when used skillfully, can drive people toward action. Think about the power of anticipation. When you withhold information, when you leave a statement unfinished, you create a gap in the other person's mind that they feel compelled to fill. This is known as the Zeigarnik Effect, the psychological tendency for people to focus on incomplete tasks or unresolved issues. By creating this sense of incompletion, you can draw people deeper into your ideas and keep their attention focused on what you want them to consider. Now, let's turn our attention to framing. The way you frame an idea can completely change how it is perceived. For example, if you want someone to adopt a new approach, you could frame it as a solution to a problem they care about. Instead of saying, "This will help us meet our goals," you might say, "This will solve one of the biggest challenges we've been facing." The second framing is more compelling because it speaks directly to an existing concern, but it aligns your idea with their priorities, making it harder for them to dismiss. Framing also extends to how you present yourself. People are more likely to be influenced by those they perceive as credible, confident, and aligned with their values. This doesn't mean you need to pretend to be someone you're not, but it does mean you need to be mindful of how you come across. Are you presenting your ideas in a way that inspires trust? Are you demonstrating that you understand the other person's perspective? Are you showing that you are not just pushing your own agenda, but genuinely seeking a mutually beneficial outcome? Let's not ignore the role of emotion in shaping minds. Humans are not purely rational beings, but even the most logical argument can fall flat if it fails to connect on an emotional level. If you want to influence someone, you must understand what they feel, not just what they think. What excites them? What frustrates them? What do they fear losing? When you connect with someone's emotions, you bypass their defenses and speak directly to the core of who they are. But emotional connection is not enough. To truly shape minds, you must also provide a sense of clarity. People are drawn to those who can simplify complexity, who can take a chaotic situation and make it understandable. If your ideas are vague or confusing, they will be ignored. But if you can articulate your vision clearly and succinctly, you will command attention. Clarity is not just a communication skill, it is a form of power. Now, let's address a common obstacle. What do you do when someone resists your influence despite your best efforts? The key is not to push harder, but to step back and reassess. Resistance often arises because the other person feels misunderstood or undervalued. Instead of arguing, seek to understand their perspective. Ask questions like, "What concerns you most about this idea?" Or "What would make you feel more comfortable moving forward?" By addressing their concerns directly, you can often dissolve resistance and create a path toward agreement. At this point, it's worth asking another fundamental question: what kind of influence do we want to have? Is our goal simply to get people to do what we want, or is it to help them see possibilities they might not have considered? The difference is profound. Influence that is purely self-serving is shallow and unsustainable. But influence that empowers others, that helps them achieve their own goals while aligning with ours, creates a foundation for lasting trust and cooperation. There is a deeper principle at work here: reciprocity. People are more likely to be influenced by those who have shown a willingness to give, to help, to contribute without expecting immediate returns. This is not about being overly generous or self-sacrificing. It's about demonstrating that you are invested in the relationship, not just the outcome. When others see that you are willing to give, they will often feel compelled to give in return. Finally, let's discuss the role of timing. Even the most brilliant idea, the most compelling argument, will fail if it is presented at the wrong time. Timing is everything. Pay attention to the context. to the mood of the other person, to the larger circumstances. Is this the right moment to introduce your idea, or would it be better to wait? Mastering timing requires patience, but it also requires intuition, the ability to sense when the conditions are right and when they are not. Let me leave you with this thought. The art of shaping minds is not about control, but about connection. It's about understanding people so deeply that you can guide them without resistance, not because you are forcing them, but because they trust you to lead them towards something valuable. Influence is not a game of dominance, it is a dance of understanding, alignment, and timing.